June 24th, 2025. Dawn was just breaking over the waters off Kherson. The sea, dark and glassy, reflected the faint silver of early sunlight. On its surface, a Russian Cerna-class landing craft, 26 meters long, sliced through the waves at high speed. On board were more than 30 elite troops. They believed they were moving under perfect secrecy, shielded by darkness and distance. But for the previous 27 minutes, their mission had already been compromised. Hovering silently at 18,000 feet was a Bayraktar TB2 drone. Not a toy, not an improvisation, but one of the most effective unmanned aircraft of modern war. The Russians did not realize that their every movement was being watched, recorded, and prepared for destruction. What would unfold was not just another drone strike. It was a demonstration of patience, precision, and strategic impact. Within less than a minute, an operation months in the making would collapse into fire and wreckage. At 2:00 hours, the TB2 lifted off from a concealed launch site near Mykolaiv. Its takeoff was unremarkable. No roar of jet engines, only the steady hum of its Rotax 9-2 piston motor, the same type used in light civilian aircraft. The drone cruised at a leisurely 70 knots. Speed was unnecessary. The strength of the TB2 was endurance and stealth. Its route was anything but direct. The operators carefully threaded it through radar blind spots, always keeping a minimum of 50 kilometers from known Russian S-300 air defense positions. On radar screens, the drone's tiny cross-section registered as little more than a large bird. For the Russian crews struggling with fatigue in the early morning hours, there was nothing unusual to notice. Inside the Ukrainian ground control station, the drone operator sat surrounded by screens and controls. The atmosphere resembled a gaming setup more than a battlefield. Yet unlike a video game, every keystroke and joystick movement here carried life and death consequences. The TB2's MX-15D electro-optical sensor ball, a Canadian-built marvel, swept the sea below. In infrared mode, the Black Sea turned into a canvas of pure darkness, broken only by bright points of heat. Engines, wakes, even the faint warmth of human bodies could reveal themselves. The operator knew the rhythm of drone warfare. 99% monotony, 1% pure adrenaline. Hours could pass without change. Then suddenly everything could shift in seconds. And on this morning, that shift arrived. At WAR 347, a heat signature appeared. Large, steady, leaving behind a glowing wake in the frigid water. The operator zoomed in. The unmistakable outline of a Cerna-class landing craft came into focus. But this was not all. Within minutes, 2 more signatures appeared, trailing 5 kilometers behind the lead vessel. A convoy, 3 ships in formation, heading directly toward the Ukrainian coast. This was not a routine patrol. This was an operation. The operator tagged all 3 vessels, began recording video, and alerted superiors. Every pixel mattered. Every second of footage could become evidence, intelligence, or justification. At 04:15, the secure phone line delivered the words, "Cleared to engage." The decision was not taken lightly. Each MAM-L missile carried by the TB2 cost $70,000. More importantly, attacking would reveal that Ukraine had surveillance coverage this far south, potentially compromising future operations. Yet the risk was outweighed by the threat. A convoy of landing craft carrying unknown cargo toward Ukrainian shores. The operator immediately began to prepare an attack run. Standard doctrine was clear: strike the lead vessel first to sow maximum confusion. The TB2 broke from its patrol pattern, banking wide to line up directly behind the Russian convoy. Under its wing hung the MAM-L, a 22-kilogram smart micro-munition with a 10-kilogram shaped charge. Small but lethal, designed for precision. Success depended on one factor: the laser designator. The missile required continuous illumination on its target for the entire 40 seconds of flight. Even the slightest wobble could mean a miss. Just as the attack was about to begin, a warning flashed across the operator's screen. Laser malfunction, recalibrate. Heart rate spiked. The Russian craft was now only 7 kilometers from shore. Time was running out. In a desperate move, the operator toggled the system off and back on. A crude fix, but often effective. 5 seconds, then 10. Finally, the system rebooted successfully. Laser operational, target locked. At 0446, the operator squeezed the trigger. The missile dropped cleanly, fins snapping open. It dove toward the sea at 250 meters per second. Time to impact, 43 seconds. On the deck of the Russian craft, life went on. Some soldiers smoked cigarettes. Others checked their rifles or talked casually. The thermal camera recorded their heat signatures clearly. Only in the final moments did one sailor look upward, pointing in alarm. But physics does not negotiate. At 0448, the missile struck. The MAM-L's shaped charge tore through the thin steel plating of the Cerna. A fireball erupted, engulfing the midsection of the vessel. But then came something even more telling. Secondary explosions followed within 1.3 seconds. These were not fuel tanks. They were demolition charges, thermite devices designed to burn hotter than steel, intended for sabotage missions. Waterproof crates floated free, marked with Cyrillic symbols. The implication was clear. This was no ordinary infantry transport. This was a special operations team carrying equipment for strikes deep inside Ukrainian territory. The two trailing vessels reacted instantly. Both executed sharp turns, throttling up to maximum speed toward Crimea. There was no attempt to rescue survivors, no search pattern, no counterattack, only retreat. For the men still clinging to wreckage in the cold water, the sight was devastating. They watched their own ships abandon them without hesitation, disappearing into the distance with white wakes foaming behind. In that moment, loyalty was replaced by cold calculation. Operational secrecy, it seemed, mattered more than human lives. On Russian emergency frequencies, chaos erupted. Frantic voices overlapped. Commanders shouted conflicting instructions, and bursts of encrypted traffic spiked to levels rarely seen. Intelligence analysts listening in described it as panic in digital form. Messages ordering immediate withdrawal cascaded through the network, overriding local decisions. By mid-morning, U.S. satellites confirmed the outcome. Vessels streaming back into the relative safety of Sevastopol. No secondary sorties were launched. No rescue helicopters dared venture out. The strike had not only destroyed a single landing craft, it had paralyzed an entire sector of Russian special operations. Within a week, Russian sabotage missions in the Western Black Sea simply ceased. It was not just fear of drones, but recognition that their secrecy had been shattered. For the first time, commanders admitted, silence over the Black Sea no longer meant safety, it meant they were being watched. In 43 seconds, months of planning collapsed. 30 elite troops trained for sabotage gone. Equipment worth millions lost. A plan that might have altered the balance of the front lines was reduced to wreckage on the seabed. The cost to Ukraine? One missile worth $70,000 fired from a drone that cost a fraction of a single Russian jet. But the greater impact was psychological. Russia's confidence in its own secrecy, in its ability to move unseen, was shattered. Every mission from that moment forward carried the fear that an unseen drone might be circling overhead. This was more than just a strike. It was a revelation about modern warfare. For centuries, victory at sea depended on fleets of massive ships, heavy guns, and overwhelming numbers. In the Second World War, aircraft carriers and bombers defined the seas. But in the 21st century, the balance is shifting to unmanned systems. Small, inexpensive drones can deliver decisive blows against much larger forces. The TB2 was not designed to dominate the seas. Yet in this single dawn strike, it demonstrated that an aircraft the size of a small plane could dictate the tempo of a naval theater. June 24, 2025 will be remembered not simply as the destruction of a landing craft, but as the day a drone reshaped the confidence of a navy. Ukraine's operators did not just eliminate a target, they exposed a secret, disrupted an operation, and forced an enemy fleet into retreat. The lesson is stark. In modern war, information and precision matter more than size or numbers. A patient operator, a steady hand, and a single missile can outweigh months of planning and millions in investment. As dawn settled fully over the Black Sea, the waves carried wreckage and secrets alike. For the Russian command, it was a disaster. For Ukraine, it was validation. For the world, it was a glimpse of the future battlefield, where the quiet hum of a drone engine may matter more than the thunder of artillery.